Just go ahead and start. I mean, it's recording.
You gotta smile. This is our first, appearance to our audience.
I'm not gonna smile.
You gotta give me something.
Oh, I don't like the fact that that tooth's on that side. Oh, that's gross.
Oh, it's dark.
It's dark because it's shadowed.
Ah, cuts in. I see what you mean.
Yeah.
We could do the pitch
Uh,
perfect thing. Blah, blah, blah. It's recording all that.
oh yeah, it's
Okay.
recording. I started the recording.
Okay, so we could just come start right into it,
I
right?
know, right? Just start with the
Well,
topic of discussion, and we'll go from there. You're all like, let's
topic of
make this
discussion.
super professional and have an intro. I'm like, I already hit record.
Yeah, hit record. We're not talking about. Okay. Well, hello. Welcome to Geekdumb Profits.
Back up.
Oh, hello. And welcome to Geekdumb Profits. I'm one of your hosts. My name is Village.
I'm Sonic Spaz.
Sonic Spaz. That's right. What a beautiful name, Sonic Spaz.
Well, I am a massive Sonic fan, so
That's right. So we are father and son. I am Geek Father. That would make you
I guess I'm the geek son. The son of the geek!
son of a geek. You son of a geek. Okay, he fell into my trap. See where I was going with this. All
I
right.
beat you to
So
it.
you
I
stop
know
being-
you and your dad jokes.
Well, we've been wanting to do this for a while. I'm pretty excited about this.
Oh, yeah.
So we decided, my son and I, that we were gonna do a podcast together. We've been planning this for about 6 months, something like that.
About 8 at this point.
Well, technically, we've been planning together for about 20 years. But
Yeah, I guess you could say that.
maybe. Well, we've been nerds together for that long. I've raised my son correctly, so we decided we want to do this podcast together called Geekdumb Podcast. So just
Geekdom
in the title of the
Profits.
name,
Geekdom Profits.
see, we gotta come up with that. You gotta cut that one out, right? No,
Yeah,
no.
of
All
course.
right. So yeah, we're the Geekdumb Profits. So kind of a twofold basis. So if you feel like you're geekdom, meaning you don't know much about the geekness, the realm of whatever, whether it's video games or movies or comics, that if you feel like your geekdom needs some education, we're here to help bring that across. Any words on that, Curtis? You agree?
Oh, yeah. I mean, the whole point is that we want to be able to educate people on what it means to be a geek and what it means, not necessarily a geek, but what it means to be a fan. And more specifically, the type of stories that we want to be told. The type of stories that brought us inspiration for ourselves, and inspiration in our own lives, how we acted, and then to go from there to be able to say, these are the stories that made us. These are the tales that we want to be able to pass down. It's the stories that made us fans in the first place. So part of what we want to do here is to be able to explain specifically characters, their motivation, and how they've influenced culture, and more specifically, how they've influenced us.
All right. So, what's my motivation? So that comes to the second part of the name, Geekdom Profits, understanding prophetically, like how it has affected us personally, what brought us into this realm, and how it has actually helped us in our lives and our day-to-day basis. That we're not the typical movies that you see, the old Sidney White type of movies that say, "Hey, I'm a dork," that they're separate from the rest of society, but that this is actually the means and kind of the base cornerstone of most societies is those little subcultures. And so how those subcultures affect a culture ultimately affects the society and where the society will go according to its standards, whether they have understanding the difference between ethics and morals or relativism versus the idea of absolutes. So we wanted to bring in and incorporate all these different aspects while we again, like what Curtis was saying, is looking at our past and seeing how it affected us, what has influenced us. And the big thing is, it's just like interpreting anything, is you need to read things in context and not being able to take things out of context, especially when, so much of the culture is being invaded, or subcultures are being invaded by outside sources, as I would say, that are trying to change the basic presuppositions of characters in the Marvel universe or Tolkien lore, things like that, without getting, too wrapped up in political of it all. Exactly, because we want to bring about the enjoyment of, as you can see, our world around us. Mine is mostly Star Wars and one little bit of Marvel.
Captain America.
And that.
Supergirl.
Yeah. Well, yeah, Supergirl.
And mine encapsulates just about everything else.
About everything else, exactly. So hopefully, we can kind of shed some light, breaking in the different aspects. Curtis and I have been collecting comics together since you were a comic book store manager.
Oh, long before that.
Yeah, well, I think that's where it really got started.
No.
Well, the nerd part, yeah.
Most of our comic book, like where we started really getting into collecting comic books, was shortly after your sister's husband passed away. Where he had a massive comic book collection. This was in roughly, 2007, 2008?
Yeah, you were.
It was
15, 14.
It was shortly around the time of whenever Civil War and House of M came out within Marvel Comics. That he passed away, and he had a massive comic book collection. And up until that point, Dad, Bill here, my father, he had been collecting Star Wars comics. I mean, he was big into Star Wars, and specifically with all the original expanded universe. So he collected
first prints.
All first prints. I'm sure the first print of Star Wars is in there somewhere. He'll show it at some point. But we used to always collect every issue of Star Wars, every variant cover that Dark Horse published, and then he went back and even had you had almost the entirety of the original 80s Marvel run as well.
I went back and bought it all again. Yep.
So he was big into that, big into the EU books. So I know my earliest memory was whenever the Star Wars Special Edition books came out. Well, the Star Wars Special Edition movies came out. 96, and remembering the Tantive 4 and Darth Vader walking down, and as he puts it, I was standing up in my chair the entire time watching this movie and absolutely enjoying it. And so it became a massive imprint upon myself. So he was collecting Star Wars at the time, pretty much since Dark Horse had gotten a hold of the rights to the books back in the 90s. So I grew up around all the old comic books. But then I also grew up with shows like X-Men Evolution, X-Men the Animated Series, Batman the Animated Series, Justice League, Superman the Animated Series, Batman Beyond. It was all that time frame whenever I was most malleable and wanted to get more and more into these superheroes. I loved Batman. I loved X-Men. The X-Men movies were a big hit at the time. So whenever my uncle had passed away, he had this massive comic book collection. And we were already kind of used to grading books. And so my Aunt Mary Ann, my dad's sister, asked if we could go through and sort the books. So for an entire summer, that's all that we did. And that's all that I read. He had thousands and thousands and thousands of comics, dating back as far as when did he start collecting?
He started collecting like late 70s, so it was definitely a lot of 80s and 90s. A few that were a little older than that, but it was mostly, he was a big Superman, Spider-Man, X-Men, really focused in on those. But obviously, he was the type of guy that literally went through and just went down the bookshelves and put them in a box. He had hundreds of comics he'd never even read. They found bags, like garbage bags, full of these old comics. And so I said, just bring them all to us, and my son and I are going to sort them all out. So we got out our little latex gloves, just flicking through everything. I was like, this was like a dream come true as far as like a collector's dream, just looking at all of these comic books. So yeah, I would agree. I think that's really started. Outside of, I grew up obviously Star Wars, loved Star Wars, born and raised, read the comic books, had all of the trading cards, still own the original trading cards back from 1977. And then, I was 5 years old when episode 4, A New Hope, actually came out. And Curtis, you were 5 years old when episode 1 came out.
Oh, yeah, whenever Phantom Menace came out.
Yeah, in 99. So that was maybe later we'll show some pictures of Curtis all dressed up, as I dressed him up as Anakin. It was a really cool outfit. I like that. But then that definitely started your love of it, or at least your, maybe not love of it, but your attraction, your being basically washed in it,
Oh, no.
every day.
It was a definite love, because if I recall, you still owned all of those ships that you kept in boxes and wouldn't let me play. And so I just pretended like the boxes were the toy and would fly them around. Yeah. And so it became a matter of, whenever I get older, I'm going to open all my figures to spite you.
We had that on video. You opened at Christmas, like playing with the box. Star.
The indoctrination started early.
It's like, you guys ever seen Toy Stories 2? That was me. He was M.I.B. Men in Box. Woo! But later on, then I started buying 2 of every toy. And then you were the envy of every kid on the block, because you had like all of these Star Wars ships, AT-ATs, the action figures, the big ones. That because I'd buy 2 and give one to you for Christmas or your birthday, and so every kid came over, they were like, "Ooh, you have the most awesome Star Wars collection." I'm like, "Yeah, that's right, King of the Nerds." So that made you the geek. That made Prince of the Nerds, I guess. That made.
I guess. Well, you still couldn't outpace Doran in your collecting. So
no, don't. Doran had the massive collection. I still see him on Facebook all the time, and he's like, "Hey, I'm into collecting something new." I think now he's into vinyl records. I was like, "Oh, that's a hard one to get into, because that's just like, wow, you go down the rabbit trail with those things."
But along comes 2006. At that point, you had quite a bit of material going on at the time, for kind of where we started. You had House of M going on in Marvel Comics. You had Infinite Crisis going on at DC, which eventually led into things like Final Crisis. So prior to that, you had Grant Morrison writing Batman. You had quite a bit going on with X-Men as they were facing more of an extinction event. You had Brian Michael Bendis starting on New Avengers. You had the likes of Jeff Johns coming back for Green Lantern and launching all of those books. So it was a great time to actually start getting into comic books during that time frame at the 2006. So that's whenever we really started getting more into the Marvel and DC and the actual comic collecting side of things. And from there, we knew we had a couple friends that managed. It was a pop culture store within our hometown, where it was a store that dealt with both comic books, used movies, video games, old retro video games, music, and toys. And from there, I started bagging and boarding comic books on a rather almost weekly basis for them for store credit, to where I would just go in, bag board, and organize books for them. And occasionally I would read.
Occasionally on the
Occasionally I would
clock.
read. And from
On the
there,
clock.
I got hired onto the store full time whenever I think I was 17 whenever they hired me on full
You were
time into the store.
16.
I was
I think you were
17.
16 because you had already had your driver's license,
Oh,
but because
it was 17.
you started when
I
Paul
got
Harris was there, but
nope.
then Josh Roberts afterwards
Nope.
was the one
I
that
Josh is the one that hired me.
right. Josh is the one that hired you.
Yep, I was 17.
Yeah, seven. I thought I was thinking
Nope.
you were 16.
I
Well,
was
seven, and
17.
then
And then from there, I eventually moved into the role of the comic book manager. So I managed all the books, all my subscription services, all the organizations, would order books from the warehouse for any back issues that we could potentially find there for this particular chain. So I handled all of that. I did that for about 18 months before I left and started working with a different company. It was mostly, personal reasons.
right,
Pay was better at
but
the next job that I went to,
right,
so you
but
never
that's
passed that up. Sadly, I loved working there at the store. Dad would come in, bag board and
yeah. I was gonna
comics,
say
continue
that's
to
what
do
started.
that.
That's what started me liking stuff other than Star Wars because I actually started coming in a couple days a week to do bag and board comics too. For those who don't know, again, this is the Geekdumb. Bag and board means putting a comic into a cardboard backing with a little sleeve that would protect it from getting hurt. So we would bag and board comics that they would get. That way, when collectors would come in, they could buy them. So I would just do that for hours, just hundreds of comic books, putting them into these bag and boards, and then that's when I started seeing these comics come through. Like, hey, I really like Captain America, so I started collecting all the Captain America, and that was with and then Daredevil did
At
all the
Brubaker's
Daredevil
materials.
with Brubaker and Bendis. So that's what really got me into was, believe it or not, Brian Michael Bendis, but specifically Brubaker. Anything Brubaker wrote, I was just like, this guy is awesome. And then, this was back in 2006, 7, 8. And now, what was it, like 15, 20 years later, they're making these Marvel movies, and most of those were actually based off of the specific line that Brubaker wrote. You know, that whole concept of with the Civil War issues going on with
The
Captain
Winter
America, Winter
Soldier.
Soldier. Yeah, the Winter Soldier one was awesome. So Brubaker has always been one of my favorite. And for those, Brubaker's been around a while. I think even recently he wrote for a couple of the episodes of Westworld, a couple seasons back with Westworld. So he's still around. He's recently been writing out some pulp fiction stuff that's just like incredible. If you haven't seen any of those, you got to get it. But all of this is just to basically kind of give you guys a background of our love for nerddom and geekdom, of just being able to understand how much has it affected our lives, but it inadvertently has affected others around us as well. And I would say in a positive sense, because we've been able to take these different life lessons and use those in applying it to other people's relationships and to our relationships with other people. So I love the fact how you reference how you grew up, how you grew into this love of it, and hopefully we can spur that in other people. Who are feeling like, hey, I'd love to get into it, but where do I start? I'd love to understand it, but I even hear nerds talk about bag and boarding. What does that mean? Just being able to take some simple concepts of the geekdom. Even Curtis rattling a little bit earlier, a bunch of names, Jeff Johns and Brian Michael Bendis, and I can't remember a couple of the other ones. Those are actually all writers of said comic books. Again, this part where we just start talking and rambling, but hopefully we can kind of dumb it down a little bit. Not necessarily dumb it down, but hopefully explain it to you. Because it doesn't need to be dumbed down, but what we want to be able to understand is it in context, not taking things out of context, and being able to see how it can apply to our lives. And even our relationship as father and son. We went to comic book conventions and celebrations. Star Wars Celebration went to two of those, three of those. How many? Specifically, the celebrations.
Was it 4 or was it only 3? Oh, no, we missed
3.
Celebration 1. So it was 2, 3, and 5.
No, 2, 4, and 5.
No, 2, 3, and 5. It was Attack of the Clones, Revenge of the Sith, then the anniversary. It was the anniversary of Empire Strikes Back. We did not go to the anniversary of A New Hope because it was in Anaheim.
It was in Anaheim. That's right. We didn't know anybody in California.
Yeah. So we went to Celebration 5 down in Orlando, and then Celebration 6 was back in Anaheim. So we never had a chance to go out that way.
2 and 3 were in Indiana, right in the middle of the country.
So
we went to those. Indianapolis. 1 was actually in Denver. We never made it to 1. I think it was in Denver.
That would have been in 1999.
And then we went to Orlando, Celebration 5. We got to stay down there with, we had some friends down there, and that was hot. It was a lot of fun.
Hot. Well, and it wasn't even midsummer. It was May.
Oh, man, that was August.
It was May.
Oh, hang on.
I'm pretty sure it was May. Oh, now he's going to prove me wrong.
I got the badges. Celebration 5. Here's the badge right here. Hang on. Hold on.
Oh, he's sitting here questioning me if I have Celebration 4 or 5, and he's got the badges right next to him.
Well, I got 4. Oh, don't duck around the other ones. Can you hear all that jingling?
Yep.
Okay, here we go. Celebration 4. 5. I mean, this was Celebration 5.
All day.
No, this was Celebration 3.
Was that the Revenge of the Sith one? Did they do 4 days for Celebration 3?
I guess so. I don't know.
I thought they only did 3. Because you had to get it punched every time that you came through. Yep.
Punched. 4 day. 4 day. So, anyways, we've been to a lot of conventions. We got a lot of badges, things like that. And as you can see from our
Never been to San Diego.
Never been to San Diego. Believe it or not, that's cha-ching, cha-ching, cha-ching.
At the time. Now it's no fun because there are too many people.
Yeah, that's right. So, as you can see behind us, we collect a lot of things, from books to action figures, statues, prints, and posters. Curtis, what do you got over there? You got a bunch of...
Oh, man. I have all of my fantasy and sci-fi novels on that shelf. That shelf is nothing but Marvel, the bottom half of it being almost a complete run of X-Men from 63 to 96. There's only one volume that's missing to complete that run, to be released in omnibus form. Top of this shelf is a little bit more X-Men stuff, but most of it is DC and independent stuff. And then all of this material is manga and some light novel stuff.
His latest love is the manga.
Oh, it's not a latest love. It's been a continual love.
Yeah, the past couple years, I was like, man, that's a whole new world. That's a whole
for you. I've been collecting manga for probably about a decade, just about as long as. Actually, a little longer than that. I got a few manga that they no longer show the test of time because I got different editions now. But
decade? That's like a third of your life.
It is almost a third of my life.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah,
that's a long time. All right, so when we decide to do this Geekdumb Prophets podcast, we wanted to be able to take different concepts and different topics as we go through, understanding like how the characters were affected and how they were portrayed in the comics. Specifically, like right now, we'll be going through some comics and some mainline. We're going to start with Star Wars, obviously, because Star Wars is kind of a love for both of us. Of just understanding
novels
how.
Are right there.
Yeah.
Where are they? Right there.
Is that your novels?
Those are my novels.
Your paltry collection.
Yeah, it's paltry. Well, you bought all the Bantam books that I can't bring myself to read, so.
First edition. Oh, that's harsh. First editions, now what they call legends.
Hey, you're the one that suffered through Darksaber, so.
Not one of its finest moments.
No.
Yeah, but anything you got with Timothy Zahn was just like.
Well, I have those books.
Yeah, that's true. You own all the Timothy Zahn. I got it. but I got his autograph.
You do have his autograph.
Yeah,
I was
got
actually there whenever you got his autograph. So.
Oh, that's right.
It was Celebration 5.
Celebration 5.
It was Celebration 5. You got Timothy Zahn's autograph, and then you got Jan Duursema's autograph.
Oh, a bunch of times. Unlike cards, comics.
Oh, yeah, we have a bunch of stuff signed by her.
3x5 cards, yeah.
I
had a bunch.
The greatest Star Wars artist ever for the Star Wars comics.
Oh, yeah. Especially when you're talking anything with Dark Talon that she did was just...
Oh, Legacy.
Was awesome.
We're getting ahead of ourselves, aren't we?
Yeah, really. Okay, so sorry, let's take this back with the classic Star Wars. So what we wanted to do is kind of talk about, first of all, the idea of Star Wars. A lot of what the Jedi religion is based out of, because that's kind of where we want to start with the concept of, when you look at these characters, a lot of these base characters have a code of ethics, whether it's based out of spirituality or their religion, whatever it may be. That is their core, their principles, their presuppositions, everything that they make basis or make decisions on are based off of their root faith or the root beliefs. So for me, that was very important in understanding, growing up in for me, very much a Christian home, and raising my children in that way, was also being able to understand that this was important in our lives, to have, a faith base and understanding of, how we make decisions in life. And so the first thing that a lot of people questioned was, I grew up in the 80s, and they were always like, ooh, Star Wars, you're trying to make this God, and blah, 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 blah. And it's understanding the principles of how they compare things to different religions around the world, and where the concepts that George Lucas took from and made this whole idea of the unifying force with Star Wars. So what we kind of wanted to look at today was looking at Star Wars, again, understanding with the Geekdumb prophets is what they call the Jedi Code or the Jedi Mantra. They walk around with their robes and just chant all day, that kind of thing. Yeah.
And the Jedi Code was something that was introduced in the EU. Suck it, Disney.
Oh, you're already going to go there, huh? Suck it. Part of the legends, but now, it's actually part of the
canon.
It is canon now.
Disney's fan fiction.
Yeah, that's right. It's just canon in both worlds of Star Wars. So when we say both worlds of Star Wars, we're going to talk about the ancient world before Disney bought it, and then the new world after Disney bought it. Because it's
canon and fan fiction. Fan fiction being Disney.
No, but Disney's insisted they didn't have any storylines to be able to take these concepts of the new movies, because it's all new for us. We're having to start fresh. Whatever. Heir to the Empire.
Ancient texts.
That's right. You had lots of ancient texts to work from, and you came up with Rise of Skywalker. The Emperor's alive somehow. What?
It's not like you just jacked that concept from Dark Empire.
Jeez. The Emperor's alive somehow.
Let's jack the concept that nobody liked whenever it was initially published and caused the most amount of turmoil within fandom, and let's make a movie out of it, and it won't cause the same issue.
Oh, but it made them the most money ever.
No, it did not.
Yeah,
it
all
barely
the seats
passed,
that were empty.
It barely passed $1 billion.
Barely, but the one that I did like was, Rogue One. I know some people still don't like it, but I really kind of enjoyed Rogue One. I thought it was done very well. But Ron Howard has a great respect for things. You know what I'm saying?
That wasn't Ron Howard.
He started it.
No, he didn't.
No, he did Solo.
He did Solo.
Oh my gosh. Oh my goodness.
He did one of the worst ones.
Rewind this one. Rewind it.
It's Gareth Edwards.
Thank you.
Gareth Edwards did Solo. Not Solo. Rogue One.
I need to turn in my shirt.
I know,
and get
right?
a new one, apparently.
It's terrible.
So as you can see,
can't get my nerd stuff right.
That's right. As you can see, we don't know it all. We're gonna hopefully help you, and you can help us. You can write your mean comments on the bottom. That idiot doesn't know Star Wars as much as he thinks he does. That kind of thing. So,
all right.
So, but what the Star Wars is basically based off the Journal of the Wills and the Jedi. The Jedi are the basic priests, pastors. They're the ones that hold the religious concepts in all of the Star Wars universe. So they become the Jedi. They became the center of, hey, this is where we're going to move to. This is where we make our decisions. Let's stop and, essentially nowadays we would say stop and pray about it. They would meditate on it. They would dwell on it. So that's the idea of the Jedi. Obviously, it goes a little more deeper than that. But they had what was called the Jedi Code. And you could find that in... Woohoo! They kind of explained a little bit of it. Thanks, Curtis, for finally buying this book for me, because it took me forever to get around to getting it. The Jedi Path and the Sith, Rule of the Sith. But it explains the whole idea of the Jedi Code. Yeah. So, there is no emotion. There is peace. There is no ignorance. There is knowledge. There is no passion. There is serenity. And there is no chaos. There is harmony. So, it's this whole idea of what seems to be conflicting concepts that they base their religion or their mantras that they would chant every day, and how they would reinforce their faith or reinforce their belief system, and how that can actually, help them in their day-to-day work that they did as a Jedi, whether they were general, peacekeeper, just
counselor,
librarian, cook, whatever it was. Because there's a whole bunch of them now. Right down to the librarians. I always like the librarians. So the first one. So
Jocasta knew.
She was pretty freaking awesome, man. I thought she was pretty cool. Okay, so we're gonna kind of break these down, just these four for our first podcast, to kind of give you an idea of our love of Star Wars. So Curtis, we're gonna start with this one. So there is no emotion, there is peace. No emotion, there's peace. How do you feel about that?
Bunch of sticks in the mud.
Just yeah, most people are going, what? No emotion? You can't get emotional? That's the whole thing, oh, Anakin can't fall in love. You're not allowed to love. I think it definitely goes beyond that whole idea of you can't love, because there's supposed to still be a peace there. There's no emotions. It's kind of like the idea of, hey, stop and think before you act, so that you are doing this with a level head, that you're doing this with you're not a spur of the moment, like, hey, let's make mandates, let's make laws and all these things. Oops, sorry. Off of this, living off of fear, or living out of just like, wow, reactionary. I think that's the biggest thing that you can take from this whole idea for anyone, whether you believe in the Jedi Code or Star Wars or your own personal belief system, is think before you act. Don't be so reactionary, like immediately. Is stop, breathe, in any relationship. Even the relationship I would have with you as my son. Not that you would ever do anything to upset me. Ever. No.
There's no lying here.
Do you remember this? This is... I'm going to bring this up. We were out in the yard, and we were breaking or doing something. We are going to go climb up the tree. And Dad walked down to the tree for it, and there was a rake in the yard. Do you remember this at all? There was a rake there, and I was like, huh, who put the rake there? I guess who left the rake out? And you were like 7 or 8, And you were like,
Oh, I wouldn't
yeah,
remember this.
yeah, you were 8. You were 8 because you and Brooke dressed up as the Matrix just beforehand. So you were down there and you were like, I don't know. I was like, okay, no big deal. So I went and put the rake back in the garage. And I came back down and you were like, Dad, it was me. I did it. I forgot I brought the rake down and I didn't put it back. No, no, no preemptions. No, me like trying to guilt you into this. Like, was this you? Was this your sister? Because I know it wasn't me. And yet you just came through. I could have easily just gone off, but just taking a breath, breathing, thinking through, and this situation resolved itself. I gotta admit, I was pretty impressed with you as a kid, 8 years old, fessing up to something that essentially you had just gotten away scot-free from it.
I couldn't live with the guilt. I still can't live with the guilt.
No, it's because I raised a good kid. It's because I raised you off the Jedi code.
Oh, and it's like I can think of another example of the use of the Jedi code and in a situation where it might be needed. So I presently work in supply chain. That's usually where my day job is.
You work?
Is working in. I know I work. I don't just collect stuff.
That's right.
Granted, I have to have a job to be able to buy the things that I want.
I was gonna say you got to pay for all that.
I got to be able to pay for it. So I work in supply chain on a daily basis. At one point, a couple years ago, I was working in automotive. Very, 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 very high stress job. If I was to go off on people because of the fact that work didn't get done and I didn't have a level head about what I was saying, I would easily get trounced in the meetings about where issues occurred.
I can see that.
Very, very easily getting taken advantage of. If I didn't stop and think for a minute of, wait a minute, I have all the information together that I need. Let's not blow a gasket here, yelling with somebody over an issue of a part didn't get made. And why didn't a part get made? It was a matter of,
right.
I need to take a deep breath, approach the situation with the information that I knew, with the information that I had. If I had gone off, I would have just been acting out of passion entirely and would have most likely gotten chewed out because I wasn't able to present what I needed to. It's those particular types of situations, especially in business, where if you act on a more passionate level, one driven by passion, people will take advantage of that fact. They'll see that you go off at drop of a hat because something went wrong that you didn't anticipate. They're going to take advantage of that fact and walk all over you, especially whenever it comes up in management and they need to, dodge a bullet themselves.
Oh yeah, they got to push it off to somebody else.
They got to push it off to somebody else. And if I'm not calm in those situations and be able to address a particular issue with a level head, the issue isn't going to resolve itself.
Can you imagine if you had gone all anger, rage, Anakin on him? I'm gonna kill every Tusken Raider in the village.
I went off with rage, but it was a controlled rage.
The fine acting there. It was a controlled rage.
It was a controlled rage. It was a matter of, you put me into this situation, I felt the burn from it, but you know what? Here's the paperwork that shows that, nope, this is actually your fault in this particular situation, so you're the one that's going to go to Honda with this particular issue.
That's right, that's right. So that's why it's important to stop, think, work through the emotional aspect of a situation so that you can find peace. It helps with the resolution process the big thing with the Jedi is a lot of this isn't necessarily always internal. It starts with internal, so there is no emotion, so that there can be peace in the relationship with others. And even in going into the next idea, that there is no ignorance, there is knowledge. Obviously, that seems like a kind of a simple contrast, that there's no ignorance. Because when you deal with ignorance, you deal with, well, the first one we talked about, people that sometimes react so quickly without thinking. The ignorance, I think, is another reactionary method. People are just like, they don't have a knowledge base to go off of it, and so they make decisions that are based off of ignorance. Even like where you're talking, you were working like that in your corporate world, in your service, what did you call it? Service ops kind of idea.
Oh, the production control and supply chain.
Yeah, yeah. Because if you don't have that, people are just making decisions without the full story. And I think that's important in each one of our lives. If you look at, I think that's the importance that the Jedi obviously put a lot of it on it because they had Jocasta Nu. They had Jedi specifically geared that would focus on history. Because obviously, as we have seen in even recent culture and recent society, if you do not understand your history and your past, you're destined and doomed to repeat it. And I think that's definitely where we're at, unfortunately, as a society. So we're going through a lot of the same crap things that we should have learned years ago. I thought we had learned years ago. Even as a parent to a father, looking at you and saying, come on, man.
I feel like I've learned, but...
Yeah, like, come on, man. Do the thing.
Do the thing! Julie, do the thing!
Julie, do the thing. It's like, you know what you're supposed to do. And yet, you turn around and just like, I gotta do it this way. But if you do it,
rebellious nature in myself, thank you.
That's right. But if you follow through with that, there becomes this knowledge base and an awareness of how it helps you in your life, obviously. Because if you got the attitude, you're not going to get anywhere in life. You gotta have that.
And it's also the idea that we're to live in ignorance is like the blissful ignorance is one thing, where you live within the bubble of your own society. But to the point of the Jedi, there is no ignorance. There is only knowledge. You constantly need to be aware of those within your life, those that were the things that are going on. Not to the extent where you're like constantly, thinking about it and thinking panicking and fearful.
Right.
But
yeah, right. It's like every social media platform.
But what is the factor behind fear? The factor behind fear is ignorance.
The fear factor.
The fear factor is ignorance. If you look upon a society and you see certain things that are making you uncomfortable, and maybe because it's different, maybe because you're trying to piece together how things work within this particular group, within this particular environment. If you're driving down the road and you don't know traffic patterns in a particular area, like a new city, you're going to be fearful. You're ignorant of how that particular city operates. I Uber drive on the weekends. You Uber drive every day. And if there's one thing that once you really start getting into driving, is you realize the more and more that you drive, the more and more that you begin to understand the traffic patterns, the more and more that you begin to not be tense whenever you're driving. You understand that this particular intersection that's coming up has a tendency to have certain blind spots that you can't exactly see around. So it's understanding where your own ignorance is and how to fill that hole, how to fill that gap within your mind, and do it in a way that brings peace to yourself.
Well, and being able to understand, like you said, your own self-awareness that you are ignorant of a particular situation. Because so many times, a lot of people just like, oh, yeah, I'll just do this because it's like I've been a massage therapist for a number of years. So when somebody comes in with a shoulder issue, I'm like, oh, well, let's just do this. But realizing that everybody's shoulders issues, they're not all the same. One person may have a shoulder issue because of a torn rotator cuff. Another person may have an issue because they have actually neck issues. Another one may be because they have a rib that's out of place. So the reasoning may not be the same. So the ignorance can come right in even because you're claiming, how's this? You're claiming a false knowledge of what you think the situation is. When you go into something and you're like, hey, I know what's happening. Let's do it this way. It's like, you really don't have all of the information. So you're actually making this decision based off of an ignorance, even though you may feel like you're basing it off of the fact that you've had experience or you have a knowledge awareness of it. Ooh, that was good. I like that.
You just came up with that one off the top of your head, didn't you?
I did. That was pretty good. That was not in any of my note cards. All right. So the next one is
Can't let them know that we have notes.
Well, yeah, I got a whole book. I got different things. A lot of this isn't notes. This is literally Curtis and I call each other like every Sunday, and we'll talk for hours about nerd stuff. And so this was the whole idea of being able to, let's do this together, and I can actually watch your face instead of just talking to you on the phone. Did you see the universal symbol for talking on? Yeah, dad joke.
Hey, listen, dude.
So there is no passion. There is serenity. And I'm not talking about Firefly.
I'm talking about Firefly.
Talking about Firefly.
It's a great movie.
I hope they bring it back. They're still talking about it. Even though they say no, they would never do it.
No, they were talking about bringing it back as a reboot.
I know.
Screw that. They canceled those plans real quick. Much like they canceled the talked about reboot of Buffy.
It canceled the writer, director. Canceled.
Creator.
That's not gonna. The creator. There he is. So there is no passion. There is serenity. So I think this is kind of a subtle difference from the first one where it says there is no emotion, there is peace. So this one, there is no passion. So there's a difference here between the whole idea of emotion versus passion. And I kind of look at these differently. Maybe you got a different concept. But that the first one is more internal, emotional. Not getting like with rage and anger and doing things reactionary. Whereas the third one, I think, interrelates more with your relationships that you have with others. That there is no passion, there's serenity. So passion, again, I think this idea that we need to be passionate about everything. Well, passionate, I think, has been misinterpreted so often that it just comes across as angry. It's like, just because you're angry about something, or passionate, so let's reverse that. Just because you're passionate about something does not justify you being angry. I remember I chased you one time. I walked behind you because you and your sister Brooke were yelling at each other about something. Brooke was antagonizing you because that was her favorite word, antagonize. What does antagonize mean? And you would start every sentence with, Brooke, blah, 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 blah. Brooke, blah, 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 blah. Brooke, stop doing that. And whenever you started getting to that point where you got angry, like, Brooke started with it. And Brooke did something to you, and you went in your room, and you slammed that door, and it shook like the whole hallway almost to the point where a painting fell off the wall. And I remember chasing you down, walking into your bedroom, and I got right next to you. I said, Curtis, it is okay for you to be angry. It is not appropriate for slamming doors and yelling. And you were just like, I don't know if that changed your life, but it was definitely a moment of a life lesson, because it's, the Bible says be angry and sin not. I think we're completely justified in being passionate, but that does not justify your actions and how you portray your passionateness. Does that make sense? Being angry.
You're justified how you portray your passions.
You're justifying it?
No, yeah. Not justifying how you portray your passions.
What do you mean, you're not?
Well, you were just saying.
Oh, you're agreeing with me.
Yeah.
Well, so Wonder of wonders, you're agreeing with me.
I know. It's so
I know. We got this recorded. Somebody write this down. That's right. So, not being angry, not being, throwing things at federal buildings and throwing fire bombs and justifying all this crap that's going on and saying, oh, it's because I'm passionate. And I'm like, well, I can be passionate just as much.
Well, when your passion leads to the destruction of something, then you may want to be looking at the reasons why you're passionate about it.
Right. It goes to the second part of this. There is no passion. There is serenity. It's how our relationship, how we have a tranquility or with other people. So like that first part, there is no emotion. There's peace, that's internally, but then externally there is no passion because there should be serenity. That your freedoms, Justice Marshall declared that your freedoms only extend as far as that they begin to override or step on someone else's. So how you express that really has to take into consideration the two steps before. Stop and breathe, stop and think. Don't live in ignorance. That will help you be able to take the next step of being passionate about something without being stupid about it.
It's being calm in your approach, is what it is.
Being calm.
It's calm in your approach to a situation. You can act within a passionate manner where you come out in outbursts and stating, no, this isn't the situation, or in the case of rioting and burning down buildings. That's a passionate response to what you may view as an unjustifiable action. Yeah, but within the line of that passion, you've caused way more destruction. You've caused people to distance yourself. Now, I have to control myself and my passion for the items that I have, and my own geekdom, my own nerd culture. I mean, I love this stuff. But because of the fact that I'm so passionate about it, what ends up happening is it does override it. I find myself working significantly more than I need to because I want to fill this passion more and more, where I'm not giving myself an opportunity to be calm. I'm not giving myself an opportunity to enjoy what I have. It's just more passion, more drive to fill this unattainable desire to have more of what I like. More of what I like. And so I've lost out on the actual, and a lot of times I've lost out on the actual enjoyment of why I buy the things that I do. I still have, I have plenty of these books in here. How many of them have I completed? I don't know. There's still plenty more that I need to read.
I've read almost every one of mine behind me.
Well, you have 2 more bookcases of Marvel Omnis that you're still reading through as well.
That's in the other room.
That's in the other room. I know. You don't have all of your stuff in one room like I do. Actually, I still have additional books outside of my bedroom door, so.
That are not in this picture.
Yeah, they're not in this picture, and I got
we'll
some
show them eventually.
Over on this side that aren't in the image as well. Some books lying on the ground. It's all over the place. But it's because I have an absolute passion for this material that I just continue to buy it. Well, because of the fact that I won't stop myself from buying more comics, buying more toys, buying more books, because of the passion that I'm trying to feed, I'm not finding that inner peace, that inner calmness to be able to tell myself to stop.
Well,
it all of a sudden overloads my own life and overloads everything. I have no space. I have no more space within my little tiny apartment complex that I live in. But yet I still buy things. The passion corrupts me because it corrupts other aspects of my life.
Your passions.
I want to stifle the passions to find inner calmness and serenity.
Nip it in the bud. Well, I think kind of what you were hitting on earlier. Just because you're passionate about that does not justify you being able to do that. So it goes back to one of the oldest sayings ever is the ends does not justify the means. Period. And I think, just because you're like, I want to reach or get to this goal at the end, that does not justify everything that you do in the process to get there. No matter how many people you've hurt, no matter how many buildings you destroyed, or how many legacies that you've hurt, no matter how much that you change Star Wars at the root of all of its glory, it does not justify your intentions. But I think the important part here, again, looking at the Jedi Code, because this is also, it's how our relationships relate with each other, right? So, it says that I don't necessarily look at, I do not count myself to think of myself more highly than I ought to think, but to think with sober judgment. That I'm not better than this other person. I may just be in a different situation. I'm not. I maybe feel like I'm a little more in control because, hey, I've been doing some of these first steps. Calming down on the emotions, not letting those get the better of me, understanding the full picture, grasping it all, and then taking it down to, not passionate or being passionate without displaying the anger and the frustration and all the other things. Is someone, I think the biggest thing I've seen lately is I think I shared this with you once before. I can't remember if it was you or somebody else. I am so tired of people posting, on social media, whatever. I hate this. I'm anti this. I'm anti that. It's like, I don't care. I think one of the best videos you sent to me was from Razor Fist. And he was talking about how you be the culture.
Oh, yeah. It's one of his more recent ones, yeah.
Yeah. But, of course, it's Razor Fist. So there's a lot of little expletives in there emphasizing about you being the culture. It was a fantastic video because it was right in line with what these things that I've been feeling and thinking. I'm tired if you tell me what you don't like. How about you tell me what you do like, what you do love, what you are passionate about? Stop being this anti everything. And how about we be something for? Instead of I hate the American flag. Okay, why? I'm a patriot through and through. There's a lot of things I don't like about stuff, but the way I looked at it, I was always told it's kind of like Noah's Ark. It may stink, but it's the best thing afloat. I had to throw in my dad joke there.
Oh, yeah, you had to throw in your one dad joke into this, didn't you? Oh, I've had a couple dad jokes.
I probably had a few more. That's right. All right, so there is no passion. There is serenity. So that's how we can help learn to relate with our fellow man. So there is no chaos. There is harmony. Because again, looking at these, if we look at these in a different step, looking at there's no emotion, there's no ignorance, there's no passion, so that there is no chaos, there is harmony. So how do we get to the point where we can achieve this harmony where, again, looking at, it's so hard not to take this into our personal circumstances individually, but also even as a culture, as a society. How do we become not so, what's the term they keep using? Divided or divisive. Yeah, divisive.
Divisive.
Who's the one being divisive? Topic. That's right. That's a whole nother topic.
Well, and I think whenever it talks about it, there is no chaos. There's harmony. I don't think it means that there's going to be a lack of conflict.
Kumbaya, my lord.
Yeah, we're not going to be singing Kumbaya. I think whenever it states that there is no chaos, there is harmony. It's that we are forming peace from the chaos, and we form the peace from the chaos to create an idea of harmony through the things of controlling your emotions and being able to stop and think, and then from that being able to fill your ignorance and your lack of understanding with a desire to grow in your knowledge of the situations that you're in, and then from that not being able to react passionately, but one with a calm, level head, and from that you will create harmony from the chaos that encompasses your life, that encompasses the world, that you Jordan Peterson talks about this all the time. I'll bring him up. He has literally a book called The 12 Rules for Life, An Antidote to Chaos. These aren't necessarily newer concepts, but it's not to state that we're going to have a lack of chaos. It's to state from the chaos it will be possible to create harmony. From the conflict that arises within society, it will be possible to create harmony through the ideas of, controlling your emotions, being able to fill your knowledge and understanding, and then being able to act calmly upon that understanding. It's something that I feel significantly is, lacking, because everybody looks upon chaos as this great evil thing. Well, if we let chaos proceed the way that it does, it will bring about destruction within not even within society, but within your own life.
Well, I think Obi-Wan even said it. For those, we're going to bring this up. Obi-Wan is my favorite Star Wars character. Just how he progresses in his maturity through episode 1, 2, and 3. That's a whole nother thing. But when he's talking to Qui-Gon and they go before the Gungan and they're like, hey, we need some help to help Naboo. Yes, this is the part where we're going to geek out and nerd out, where he goes to Boss Nass and he says, hey, we need your help. And Obi-Wan says to Qui-Gon, they must understand the symbiotic relationship that we have, that one affects the other. And that's very fitting to this whole fourth point, that there is no chaos, there is harmony. The whole idea that we have symbiotic relationship with other people. What is the thing that's driving the difference between us and somebody else? Being able to look at, being able to step into somebody else's shoes and look at things from their perspective. The Bible would say, when they ask to go with you for the mile, you go with them too. You take it to the next step to help create this harmony, so that, like you said, you're not ignorant of the situation, that you have a knowledge base. You're not so flamboyantly emotional and frustrated that you're looking at this, what can I do to help my fellow man? So, like I said, these first parts seem to be more like, how do I handle things internally so that there is no emotion, no ignorance, no passion, no chaos. That's internal. So that it helps with the external relationships, so that there's peace externally, that there's knowledge externally, there is serenity externally, and there is harmony externally. Whether that's a relationship between father and son, or a boss and employee. It can be, especially through the potty training years. Let's not go there. You were easy.
You talk about that. I was thinking more, most people when it really get to the high school years, puberty kicks in.
Yeah, that could be. Again, you were a pretty easy kid, so I never had to struggle with a lot of those things.
No. They had to kick me out of the house to get me to do things.
Yes, I did. Oh, Curtis, if you got your own driver's license, you can go to the comic book store anytime you want to.
That was an actual conversation.
That's an actual.
Had my driver's license the following week.
You did? I could not get you to take your driver's license exam. I was like, you're like, what was it, 15, 16 at the time? 15 and a half in Missouri at the time. And you were like, I don't need it. You drive me everywhere. And you kept bugging me. It's Wednesday.
Hey, I just needed that one little ounce of what the freedom would be if I had a vehicle and I put forth the effort. And you know what I did? The following week, I went and got my driver's license, and you never once drove me around again.
Never once?
Not really.
Okay. That's fair.
Now, if I want you to drive me around, it's because I'm a lazy asshole that just wants to sit around because, it's vacation time, and I'm like, well, I ain't driving.
I know that was an unintentional mute, but it muted right when you said that. It was kind of funny. Maybe it did. You were just cutting out. That's all right. All right.
Language will be a thing on this podcast.
Every now and then. All right. So the idea is that basically is looking at the common man, looking at how our relationships affect other people, how your actions can affect others. I think, like I said, Obi-Wan was trying to bring that out, that point, um, that what we do affects others, whether you like it or not. It does. One of my biggest pet peeves. You ready for this?
Mm.
When people drive down the wrong way in an in the parking lots at stores.
Oh, yeah, whenever you have the directions because all the lanes are pointing in one direction.
Nothing. I, I don't know. That's where there is no passion. This running. I gotta breathe. I gotta breathe because I'm just like, and they're flipping me off, doing all kinds of things because I'm driving down the middle. There's a big giant arrow on the ground that's painted that says go this way because all the cars are angled at this way. So I don't need to drive to the right side or the left side, whether you live in England or America, doesn't matter. You drive down the center because all the cars are going that way, and then another car comes the other way, and they give you these dirty looks. Oh, man. I'm telling you, I hate that. That's frustrating. See, I'm getting passionate. You know what that does? It creates total chaos. Unnecessary chaos because this person's driving down the wrong way. Everybody else is trying to back up to get out. They shouldn't have to look both ways because there's a big giant arrow painted on the ground saying you go that way and that way only.
Yep.
Okay, is that the rant over?
Your rant over?
I don't have a lot of them. I don't know. I don't know. Probably as a dad, I probably had quite a few more than I think. Trying to make life lessons out of everything. I was always trying to make.
I don't remember you ranting all that much as a kid. There were a couple situations, but nah.
All right.
Mostly mom told you to stop it.
Stop it with the life lessons.
No, with the stupid rants.
Nipped it in the bud.
Nipped it in the bud. She was the calm one in the household.
The calm. Hey, now I'm the calm one now. I'm calm. I'm very calm because I finally living out my Jedi code is what it is.
He's attempting to.
I'm attempting to. That's right. All right. So this was Curtis. This was a beautiful time. All right. So we're gonna sum these things up. We're gonna call it the. I came up with this. This is gonna be the parabolic reaction. All right. So the whole idea is breaking down like the things that we learned as nerds and applying it to our lives and how we should therefore act or react in these situations. How should we respond to this? I've always wanted this to be more than just two guys rambling because we do that all the time. But as even as this has kind of come around here, understanding that I'm also a dad and I like to take life lessons and learn from different things and take this to heart that okay, what do I need to change personally? So this whole idea of this emotion, there is no emotion, there's peace, there is no ignorance, there's knowledge, there is no passion, there's serenity, there is no chaos, there's harmony. These are beautiful things because I think this helps us in our relationship, not just with ourselves, but with others. One of the greatest things, speaking of the serenity, and I think this kind of applies to all this, anybody who's gone through, unfortunately or fortunately had the chance to go through AA meetings and things is the simple prayer that they base so much of their life on is God grant me the serenity. If you guys know it, chant it with me. God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and wisdom to know the difference. I think that kind of sums up in a modern day sense of our the Jedi Code and how we should live by. That you can't be so rage-minded, especially for things that you can't change. Being able to understand and have the courage to change the things that you can. I think that helps in any relationship. Like I said, whether it's father and son, with your employee, with your boss, even in a relationship between a husband and a wife, whatever the relationship may be, it's important to understand knowing the difference. There is no ignorance, there's knowledge. Being aware of the difference of things that you can't change versus the things that you can change. And the most important part here is the wisdom to know the difference. I think that's hard for some people because they will try and try and try to change somebody else in a relationship that they're with. And they're like, oh, they don't love me. They won't change. They won't do whatever, But understanding what I can change, what I can't change. I can't change male pattern baldness, but
you don't have that.
Change.
I do.
Oh, you do. But what I can change is how I comb it over. That's what I can change. The difference between the two. And like I said, even in my relationship with you, as my wonderful, loving son, there's things that I have hopefully implemented and implanted in your life and helped blossom you into the man that you become. But I also know there's probably some things that I've done that were mistakes. And, I'm not proud of everything I've done in my life, but that's the whole point, is that some things we can't change that. We can't change what we've done. We can only grow from it and learn from it. So that's my parabolic reaction today, is take it home. Because I think it's very important for us to know that God has a plan for us, for welfare and not for evil, to give us a future and a hope. And that's wherein lies our love, is that we have that hope for something new, something better, that we can change if we need to.
Well said.
Well said. All right. So let's take Simple that enough. Home. Simple enough. That's right. So that's our Geekdumb Profits for the day. So if you feel like you've been educated a little bit more about the Star Wars realm and understanding that, hey, Star Wars is not just it's out there for the common man. It's for everyday man. You can actually take classes on it.
It's not just space wizards.
That's right. It's not just a space fantasy, space drama.
Space opera.
Space opera. That's right. Thank God they didn't sing in it. They did a little bit in Spaceballs. Spaceballs did it. Oh, Dino.
It's a soap opera in space.
Soap opera in space. Well,
at some point we'll get to the X-Men superhero soap opera.
Oh yeah. We're gonna get to that. We'll get to Daredevil.
You got to do some read up on it. Let's face it, your understanding of X-Men is nowhere near as in depth as mine. But that's
no, because this is one of our segments we're going to be introducing to. What's your latest read? Amazing Spider-Man Volume 5, getting there. But yeah, so we got all kinds of concepts, things that we can talk about. Some concepts we have lined up: Fantastic Four, Shazam, Daredevil, X-Men, of course. Gotta, Curtis's favorite. And
Batman.
You're gonna, of course, the Batman. The Batman. What becomes their basis? What becomes their, as Galaxy Quest, what's my motivation?
My Grapthor's hammer.
My Grapthor's hammer!
You shall be avenged.
You shall be avenged. Alright. So that's all we have for you guys today. Thanks for joining. Thanks for listening. I'm one of your hosts, Billage, a.k.a. Bill, the father, the geek father.
And I'm your other host, Sonic Spaz, a.k.a. Curtis, the son of the geek.
The geek! Son of the geek. Thanks for listening, guys. You guys have an awesome time. Sign off. And remember, perspective is either your prison or your passport.